Yeah, sometimes I have this exercise I do with team, and I have the first team is they have to organize a party, and I tell them, but nobody else know in the group, the volunteer for the party, that they have to say yes to everything. And then you see when that party is happening, and it's really fun, and everybody's have a great time seeing them building the party. And then we do it again, and with those volunteers, I tell them you have to say no to everything. And after 20 seconds, there's no fun, because every time somebody say, and we're going to get great food, it's like, no, we don't have the budget. It's just like, and it's such a great illustration of the difference of saying yes, and saying no. Yeah, we have this thing in improv, which is really good, and it's this thing called I fail, and you just put your hands up, and and when you do it in a game, and everybody in the group say I fail. And it's just like, no big deal. Just move on. Next. Yeah. So it's really powerful not to feel like it's okay. Failure is part of it. Yeah. Actually, the more you fail, the more you'll succeed. And especially in my work, what I tell teams is it's important to fail, but do it early when it's still easy and cheap. Yeah. If you fail 2 years down a project, that's really expensive. Yeah. If you fail on your first idea, it's like, no big deal.
Yeah. Hello, fellows. Welcome to the next episode of Jagged with Jasravee, conversations at the edge with thought leaders from the branding, marketing, and the business world. Hi, Ellen.
Good morning. Oh, good evening for you.
Yes. It's great to have you on my show.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Okay. If I requested you to tweet your profile, for our audiences, what would you say?
I would say, this is what I say. I would say founder of Strategic Insights, innovation consultant, trainer, facilitator, and speaker with over 20 years of experience. Helene guides companies through the innovation challenge. She helps create innovative new products, services, and experience, build effective teams, and support a user-centered culture. She's also a mom and an improviser.
Yay! A lot of it will unravel further during our conversation.
Yes.
Okay. So, Ellen, you're focused on innovation, and every company is trying to be, more innovative, to be perceived more innovative. And in the current COVID disruption, everybody's having to innovate. And also proactively looking to innovate to make the most of these times.
As we know, we're getting in a world where problems are getting more and more complex. And it really cannot be solved by a person cannot solve this problem. It really has to be a team. It really have to be a vision. It have to be people collaborating, working together. And that's really critical to be able to have teams that are working in an efficient way, that can support each other's diversity of everything, diversity of background, diversity of experience, diversity of race, gender, way of thinking, and kind of embracing it. It's harder. It's easier to work with people like us, but that's not going to change the world.
Why would you say diversity in team is important for innovating well?
There's a lot of research that proven that diversity will get you to better results. And that's because we all have our experiences, and we also have our biases. And we have different roles also in an organization. So if you want to innovate and you have a team which is only a bunch of engineers, there'll be an engineering bias. If you only have marketing people, there'll be a marketing bias. So if you have in the same team people from very different functions, as well as people that have different experiences coming from different places, their own experience, their own threat, it will really make a difference and help, because we will see problems differently. And we could raise questions that somebody else wouldn't raise because, as engineers, we always do this way. Well, but if you have somebody that has no idea, they're going to ask a stupid question, which is actually might be opening a great new way to see the problems or to solve the issue. So diversity is critical.
Yeah. So we will come to, how to collaborate better. I think you've done a lot of work there as well in terms of, how can teams collaborate better for better results. But before that, since we're talking innovation, would you like to talk about human-centered design? What is it and how to go about it so that you get it right?
Sure. So it's also called the philosophy behind design thinking. And the idea is that, when you want to create change, you have to be aware of the people for which you create change, whether they are the end users, but they can be anybody else that's going to be involved with the change. It can be the internal employees that have to deal with it. It could be some major suppliers. It could be some major partners. And unless you understand where they're coming from, unless you understand what job they have to be done, what is their life, what's working for them and not working so well, the pain, the gap, then what you create is not going to be relevant to them, or it might not be easy to implement because you have this great marketing idea, but I had a client like that. They had this great new bottle, customer like it. They tested it for 2 years, but they never talked to their manufacturing people. And they realized that that changes in the bottle was actually involving millions of dollars to make the change. But they just didn't look at it because they were looking with just a marketing filter. So that really understanding all those users, understanding the constraint in that case of the manufacturing and what it means to change a design on an assembly line. It's not that easy. And it costs a lot of money to retool everything. So this is why, user design also means it's not only mean like a big survey with numbers, but it means actually talking to people, observing people, going into their lives. So if it's an end consumers going into their home, you can work with Zoom, observing them, asking them to do tasks. If it's in an office, go and see what's happening, asking people to have diaries or pictures or things like that. So you really understand their real experience, not just with the words, but actually the real experience, because often there's a lot of things we do and we don't realize what we're doing. And if somebody observing you asks you a question, then it makes you aware that you're doing 4 steps, but they really think that they should be done in 2 steps, but you would never know. There is 2 steps in the creative process, and both are important. One is called diverging, which is looking at a lot of options. And then the second one is converging and be systematic in having a way to pick and select and eliminate. And both are part of a creative process. And the other most important thing is they can't be done at the same time. Because it's like being in a car, and if you push on the brake and the accelerator at the same time, so you're not going anywhere. So what typically happens, and I'm not in a meeting, is somebody will say, I have an idea. And the second that person talks, somebody will say, it's never going to work. Too expensive, too much time, too much money, whatever it is. And then that idea is dead. So the idea of when we diverge, it can be for a minute, it can be for 5 minutes, it can be for an hour. Then we let all those thoughts go out. And, I work a lot on Post-its, whether they're on real Post-its if I have a group, or on virtual notes, on whiteboard like Mural, and then everything goes. And then same thing when you want to select, then you don't want to just vote for the thing you like the best, which tend to be the default process in a lot of organizations, but have a way to decide. How are we going to decide? What are our criteria to decide? This is the idea that we want to move forward. Is it a budget issue? Is it the time to put to market? Is it how innovative it is? Is it that it's feasible within our organization? It fits a mission, whatever it is. So you want to have a clear process that you can decide how you select and narrow things down.
Okay. So, Ellen, earlier you were also mentioning about, how online meetings can be made better. We have to actually figure out how to do online meetings because everything is online and there's so much fatigue. There has to be a way out. So
So my philosophy is everything that can be done offline, asynchronous should be. So if there is a report, a presentation, just send it before. And if people don't read it, it's their problem. And then make it a Q&A. So at least people will be more engaged. Or, the breakup room are a great tool. So instead of having, especially if it's bigger meeting, 20 people, we can bring a topic and people in small room, 3, 4, 5 people. 5 people, you have to be engaged. Have a small discussion, and maybe you can report back to the group. Or you can also divide and conquer. So sometimes 20 people is not super efficient, but each group can do something different for 10 minutes. This group will look at this aspect of the problem. This group will look at a different aspect of the problem. We work a small group, and then we have a way to report it back to the bigger group. I love whiteboards. I think they're a great way to collaborate together that in a way that is visible, instead of having a note taker and then you don't know what they're doing and all that. If you, I've done sometimes when you might have a huge whiteboard for the whole meeting, and then each group go in a breakup room and they work in different areas of the whiteboard, but then the whole team can see the whole whiteboard, either during the team or after, and it's all there. And we can add things after the meeting as well. If we have a new thought, just add it to the whiteboard. So I love it as a team collaboration tool, because what I find is if you put stuff in the chat box on Zoom, like sometimes people report in the chat box on Zoom, and then and you have so much to read, is really hard to do and follow. But if you have a whiteboard and, each team has a summary on a big note or something, it's so much easier and stay there for after the meeting. And it's not literally a note. And so I really think that it might take a little bit of training, but I mean, usually I do, when I work with teams, like I train and then we use Mural as a tool, it'll take 10 minutes of training and people it's pretty easy to do the basic. And I find it, and I'm a visual thinker too. So I have my biases here.
Yeah. And I also really like that different groups are doing different aspects. So you are keen to know, what is that piece of the pie, and, what is my contribution of the pie. So, you have to listen to everything to get to, the entire picture, and that keeps you engaged, perhaps.
Yes. In a traditional meeting, you can actually have the nonverbal cues, and you don't have those anymore. And that's most of it is actually nonverbal. So how do you do that? And I think, and some people in the team haven't ever meet each other because they've been new hire or thing like that, and they might be different place in the world and things like that. So it's definitely a challenge. And I think it's important to spend time trying to know each other better, which is, once again, if you work in small groups, that really helps. If you have 3 people and it might be different when you're different breakup room and stuff, that helps, because now I have, 3 or 4 people and I can really see them. When a group of 20, I have no idea. It's for assumptions, I do this exercise sometimes called the wall of assumption. At the beginning of a project, you write every assumption that you have. It's really interesting. Like you're on a product, you think, we have to make money. Well, this is an assumption. Maybe we don't. There's business model when a product will not make money. They make money for something else or whatever it is. So just put all those assumptions. That's a fun exercise to do. The other thing is having a process, common process and language that can help. So we all think differently. And so there's a couple of things. That's the people part, is we all think differently. So how can we understand the way we think in an innovation context? How can we understand how a team is thinking? Same thing in an innovation context. And in my work, I use a tool called Foresight. And it's an instrument that you take, and it gives you a preference for different part of the creative process. So is your preference is about clarifying, which is understanding the problem, ideating, coming up with idea, developing, or implementing. And then we can have each combination of 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those preferences. And that's myself. And then we can do the same thing. We can profile a team and understanding the team preference, which also help understanding the team's maybe more blind spot, because you might have the skills. So preference is different than skills, but still, if there's everybody has a preference for certain part of a process, they might just cut corners in the other part of the process. And or if the leaders have a very different profile than their team, that might create some tension and miscommunication. So I found this tool is a really useful tool, and because if you build awareness, that's a great first start. And IBM have been using that tool for some of their internal team, and they've done research and shown that the team that are aware of their preferences actually are more efficient and work better together than the team who are not. And then, so that's the people that's knowing your team, knowing yourself and the other people in the way they think, putting out the assumptions in the open. And then the next layer is having a common process. Because if very rarely do we train people about innovation process. So people come different background, and they have their own kind of way of doing things. But when you put 10 people together, that's much challenging. So if the company has a common process, common language, common tools, then it really helps, being in sync and moving things together. And whether your process is design thinking or agile or something else, it doesn't matter as much as having a similar process that is explicit and having tools that people are used and trained, and that's simple enough that we can use that tool. So even let's take the simplest tool. Simplest is, everybody like brainstorming. And then you read all this article about brainstorming doesn't work. Well, the reality is a lot of people don't know how to do a good brainstorming. So even that simple tools become something that is halfway done, and then there is biases, there is issues with it, and everybody's dissatisfied and say, this is not working, which is not. Brainstorming is a great tool. You have to know how to do it. You have to know the context. You have to know the rules, and you have to know that it's only a tool. So it won't solve every problem. There's a place for brainstorming, and there's a place for other tools.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I get passionate. I'm sorry, because this is really what I do. And I see such opportunity in really training teams to have common, process and tools and language.
Yeah. Okay. So Helen, shall we do the improv? What is it we're going to do?
So are you willing to play with me?
Oh my God. What am I? Okay, let's do it.
So we'll start with a quick, simple games, but I like it because the reason I actually started improv, I'll just give you a little background, is I love creativity, and I studied creativity. I had my master, and I always was intrigued with the relationship between improv and creativity. Because with improv, you have to be in the moment. You have to suspend judgment because you have no choice. You have to say the first thing that comes out of your mind. Yeah. You have to work with your partner and make your partner look good and accept the offer, not the and not the no. So those are all great rules that you can use in innovation and creativity. So I start doing it, and then I start having a lot of fun. So I'm doing it. I've been doing it for like 10 years now.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
But I do those games, as I was mentioning before, to help illustrate some of this principle. So the game I was thinking about is called Three Things.
Three Things.
Three Things.
Okay.
So I'll give you a category of things, and you have to say the first three things that comes into your mind.
Okay.
And then we repeat three things. Here's a little rhythm. And then you do the same thing. You pick a category of things, and I have to say the first three things that comes to your mind.
Okay.
The other rules is if you don't know what to say, you can always say banana.
Okay.
So there's a way out. Don't worry.
Okay.
So you want to give me a category of anything. It could be
start, because I want to understand what does a category mean.
Okay, so I'm going to say 3 brands of cars. And you have to say the first 3 brands of cars that comes to your mind.
Toyota, Hyundai.
And we repeat together 3 things. Just give a little rhythm. Okay. And then you do the same things for me. You say 3 something.
Okay, so now I'll see three things that come to your mind when you think of vegetables.
Carrots, broccoli, and spinach. 3 things. When you're in a group, you have a little kind of movement with it, but it's all good.
Okay,
So I'm going to that. 3 things to do on a weekend.
Read, go to the beach, watch a movie.
3 things.
That you'd like to do when you're alone.
Alone, read a book, sleep, and go for a hike. 3 things.
3 things.
3 things that jump up and down.
3
things that jump up and down.
Frog, spring, and sponge. A ball.
3 things.
3 things.
So that's the great thing is you can't fail.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And you kind of, learn to just go with whatever. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And when you do it with a group and you have 10 people, it gets really, really, really fun and exciting. And it's a great illustration to like, okay, now let's do an ideation and just go for anything like you just did. So there is a lot of parallel between the two.
Yeah. Improv has that crazy spontaneity to it, like it's like you can't say no, you just go with it, and at times it'll be crazy, but it'll be a lot of fun and it'll bring out all that you censor, like you keep saying no to, it'll just come out.
Yeah, sometimes I have this exercise I do with team, and the first team is they have to organize a party, and I tell them, but nobody else know in the group, the volunteer for the party, that they have to say yes to everything. And then you see when that party is happening, and it's really fun, and everybody's have a great time seeing them building the party. And then we do it again, and with those volunteers, tell them you have to say no to everything. And after 20 seconds, there's no fun, because every time somebody say, and we're going to get great food, it's like, no, we don't have the budget. It's just like, and it's such a great illustration of the difference of saying yes, and saying no, and putting things down. And we do that a lot. So usually the team really appreciate that exercise, and it's really a great way to illustrate that point without me lecturing, which I don't like to do. Yeah, we have this thing in improv, which is really good. And it's this thing called I fail, and you just put your hands up, and and when you do it in a game, and everybody in the group say I fail, and it's just like no big deal, just move on next. So it's really powerful not to feel like it's okay. Failure is part of it. Actually, the more you fail, the more you'll succeed. And especially in my work, what I tell teams is it's important to fail, but do it early when it's still easy and cheap. If you fail 2 years down a project, that's really expensive. If you fail on your first idea, it's like no big deal.
So there is a different kind of an improv coming. Mother's best advice.
Be independent.
Favorite personal possession.
My ring, Ura ring. It has a sensor in it.
Oh, alternate profession could have been?
Doctor.
If you didn't have to sleep, what would you do with that time?
I will exercise more.
What would you do on Mars for fun?
Grow vegetable.
Which animal will you like to be if given a choice, and why?
I'm sorry, which?
Animal.
A horse. Because they are loyal and beautiful animals.
Okay. One thing no one knows about you.
Oh, I used to do Aido, which is a Japanese sword martial art.
Wow. Okay. A book you'd like to gift to all your friends.
The Art of Innovation.
What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Take more risk.
What's next?
I'm actually writing a book.
Yay! So Superb. Ellen, would you like to share your online addresses where audiences can find you? We'll be putting it in the show notes as well.
Okay. So I'll say two things. My website is www.strategicinsights.biz. And I always want to say that for you, your audience, I'll put the link in the show notes, but I have this 9 question to spot you thinking about innovation. And you can download the question. And if that you intrigue or there is question that you want to go deeper into or have any question about it, then you can schedule a 30 minutes consultation with me and I'd be glad to go over it and see how I can be of help.
Awesome. Great.
Yes, I think this is an amazing show. I love your energy. I love your question. And I have to say something. I've been on maybe 10 podcast interviews by now, and you're the most organized person I ever seen. You're really clear, you prepare, and you have the best questions. So yes, this is definitely an amazing show, and I wish you a lot of luck.